Well, welcome back to the My First Rodeo podcast, the show that asks really interesting and cool and famous people questions about their first rodeos. Today is no exception. We got a really cool guest today, Jim Tanner, who is the president of Tandem Sports, part of a bigger enterprise now. But you probably don't know who he is, because why would you know who a sports agent is? But you know who his clients are. They're primarily NBA clients, although he also represents and has represented people in the WNBA, coaches, industry executives, and sports organizations. But some of his players include or have included Ja Morant, Jarrett Allen, Desmond Bain. How about Grant Hill, Tim Duncan, Ray Allen, Dominique Wilkins? You know who those guys are. A lot of them out of the North Carolina area where he comes from. He has been recognized by Sports Illustrated as one of the 101 most influential minorities in sports, and is in the top lawyers list for Washington, D.C., from which he practices. And he really does it in a different kind of way, which we'll get into during our interview of him later. But in the meantime, I want to introduce you to somebody else, my friend Nik Patel, who is one of the most interesting guys I know, and he's agreed to join me as guest host today, not least of which, at least from my perspective, because he has a really cool voice. So let him hear from you, Nik.
Thanks very much. And clearly you need to get out more. I'm one of the cooler people that you know.
I said you had a cool voice. Did I? Oh, I guess I said you were cool too. Yeah. Well, my standard for cool is different. We'll talk to Jim later, and you'll see Jim is actually legit cool. You're cool in a quirky, interesting way. But I'll never forget the first time you and I were together somewhere, and my daughter, who was quite young then, was sitting in the back of the car. I think we had to drive to Gainesville for something.
Yep.
And by the time we got there, she said, "You know who you sound like?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe you already knew where she was going." She said, "You sound like Peppa Pig." So
I like jumping up and down in muddy puddles.
Exactly. That's it. So why do you talk funny?
I talk funny because where I was born, everybody talks funny.
I got you. No, you have a beautiful accent, and you were raised in England, correct?
Yeah, born, lived there, then moved to Florida.
Yeah.
Then went to high school here, college here.
Yeah.
Then moved back to London for a year.
Here, Florida, where were you?
So Cocoa Beach area, and then University of Florida.
Okay, got it.
And then stayed in Florida, worked for Walmart for a bit, then moved back, went to MBA school at Florida.
Yeah.
Then went back to London.
Yeah.
Came back, worked for Accenture consulting firm where I was based out of Charlotte.
Okay.
Did that for a couple of years.
So you're a Southerner now, huh?
Yeah, and then moved back to Florida and then been working here ever since.
I got you. Well, it's definitely good to have you here. You certainly represent an underrepresented population of interesting people from other countries, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to know you. Coco, was your family, one of your parents, like in this at NASA or cruise industry or what?
Family was there, and so based out of there, and then that's just where it was. And then
gotcha.
Florida, like I said, and then here ever since, essentially.
One of those entrepreneurial families?
Yep.
Yeah. One of the things I love about you, and how old are your kids now?
Youngest one just started kindergarten yesterday, so 5.
Okay. How many kids do you have?
2.
Okay.
And so then the oldest, and the oldest one that you know quite well, is 10 now.
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's nice. Very even, a 10 and a 5. But one of the things I love about you is your master's golf tradition. You told me about this. I think you were just a one-kid family at the time, but you happen to love to watch golf. Perhaps you play. You never invited me to play, but
attempt to.
I know you like to watch it. And when you had a kid and then 2 kids, you were afraid that you would lose that opportunity to sit around and watch golf all weekend. Tell our listeners how you resolve that problem, and how's it going, actually? Is the tradition alive?
I will show you a picture of it. We are a good 10 years into it.
Okay.
So short story is I created a holiday for my kids in the sense that most holidays kids like just because there's an excitement to it.
Sure.
And if you think about Christmas particularly, most of the excitement about Christmas isn't actually opening up the present. It's the build up to it. The actual event is over and snap.
Yeah, it's all the traditions and the things that come along with it.
And so for Masters Sunday, which is basically the Sunday of the Masters golf tournament,
right?
It's a locked date on the calendar, so it makes it easy to schedule around,
right?
And so what we do is we've basically made it into a candy eating, lemonade drinking game for all my kids. So what happens is they have to be watching the broadcast, and when the announcer makes a birdie, you get a piece of candy.
Nice.
If you go in the bunker, you get some popcorn.
Right.
And now that the kids are older, if somebody misses a putt, we have a little putting mat in the house. They make a putt. And then they can make the same length putt that somebody missed. You get it. And so, but where we've built it up now is leading into the Masters, like on Thursday, we create a whole candy list. Like what means what means what means what.
So it changes from year to year.
Yeah. And then Friday, we actually go to the store.
Right.
And we buy all the candy.
Right.
And Saturday, we adjust based on what we've made, what we haven't made. At this point, my kids are all really excited about the Masters.
At what point do your kids realize that everyone else is not celebrating Masters Sunday in the same way your family is? Or have they realized, I guess I should say?
My daughter did, because she, I think maybe in first grade, teacher says, hey, list out your favorite holidays. And everyone's like writing Halloween, Christmas, whatever else.
All right.
And somewhat happily, but somewhat sadly, my daughter only put Masters Sunday as number 2.
Oh, well.
And the teacher rang me up and asked, is this some special religious holiday that is part of?
Maybe we could recognize it.
Yeah. And I said,
your culture.
And I said, yes, it is. And everyone should celebrate it.
Did she have you come in and do a demonstration in the class? That'd have been great.
And I'm disappointed that she did not. But maybe for my 5-year-old, when he gets to first grade, I can give a full-fledged.
Oh, that is just brilliant, because, I mean, you took something that ordinarily a 3-year-old, for example, would be utterly bored at and would maybe let you get 5 minutes of watching it if you gave them ice cream sundae, and you found a way to make them riveted by not just golf, but watching golf and listening to when the narrator says birdie or whatever else you are valuing that day. Basically, a lot of prop bets is what they're getting.
Tons of prop bets. And now that... forgot at the end of Masters Sunday, when somebody gets a trophy or gets a green jacket, we do gift exchange.
Oh, okay.
Full-on gift exchange.
They buy something for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
With your money?
Who else's money?
Yeah, I guess that's right. Well, you see, Nick, that's why I think you're one of the coolest people I know, because that is an amazing sales opportunity. And we're gonna learn more about Deal People here in just a second. So I'm really excited to introduce you to one of my favorite people, but also an incredible sports agent with just a roster of clients that is not to be matched, particularly in the NBA world. So let's talk to Jim Tanner.
Sounds good.
All right, Jim Tanner, good to see you again.
You too, Mike. How are you?
It has been too long. You're one of those people that I don't see often and talk to and text periodically. Of course, I've known you my whole career, and you've known me yours, because they started at the same time. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I feel like there's a certain when you're bonded in that way, you get to know somebody when you're going through certain things, and you're a young lawyer. It's just we pick up where we left off, is what I feel like.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So you're looking great, and man, how are things going?
Things are good. Just busy as usual. They always say that's a good thing, so I'll take their word for it. But things are good. The summer is really my busy time, and so happy to be kind of coming out of that. Free agency is in July, and the draft before that in June. So summers are tough.
Yeah, and then I assume, obviously you've signed your clients by that time, so then you're going to work, and that work starts right away and continues, I assume.
It does. So basically in May is when you start, April, May is when you start working with the guys who are going to be in the draft. And so getting them ready for the draft process that happens in June. And then you don't get much of a break before free agency starts July 1st. And then you dive into doing contracts for your existing clients. So it's a very hectic time, but it's actually probably my favorite time of year. it's extremely busy and hectic, but it's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you have kids. What's your kids' memories of the summer? Is that pretty busy during this? I know you're a great father and a dedicated father. So how does that play out?
A lack of summer vacations or at least trips.
Yeah.
So we would always, it was funny because we would take trips over the Christmas holiday and they didn't like it. So, we were going to some great places, but they always complained and said they wanted to be at home. So we stopped doing that. At this point, we look forward to vacations in August, September, October, even before the season starts up again.
I got you. Yeah, it really is. This is sort of your gap. I remember we talked months ago and you said this would be a decent window because it's sort of between those two periods.
Yeah, exactly.
How many new clients do you get a year?
How many new clients?
Yeah. Like, what's the rotation? Like, I'm guessing some retire, some new come in, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really depends. I would say in the draft process, probably the year that we had the most guys was 6 or 7. Typically, it's going to be, 3, 4 new guys in the draft. And then, as you said, guys will, kind of age out or they'll retire or they'll go overseas as opposed to being in the NBA. So there's always kind of a constant rotation.
Yeah. So, I mean, the show's called My First Rodeo. Let's sort of talk about it. I know anecdotally some of this and went through some of it with you. Right. Your first rodeo course was a couple doors down from me. We were at a great law firm in D.C., Skadden Arps. Right. And we weren't doing anything that resembled the interesting things each of us would go on to do. Tell us about your first rodeo out of law school.
Yeah. So we started at Skadden Arps in Washington, D.C. together. And for me, when I was coming out of law school, I knew I wanted to do corporate transactional work. I'd been a summer intern at both Skadden and another law firm and just didn't love the litigation, even though that's why I went to law school. And just found that I was more attracted to the transactional work and doing deals. And so when I came out of law school, I said, I don't really want to go to New York and be in New York as an attorney. I just felt like the quality of life wasn't great. And I didn't look forward to, kind of working all day, every day, all night and every weekend, which is what I think happens in a lot of New York firms. But I like the cachet of working with a New York firm and having that pedigree. And so started at Skadden in DC doing corporate finance M&A, which I thought was great. Learned a lot, learned how to negotiate deals, learned how to draft contracts, learned how to interpret statutes. So it was really great training. And I thought culturally, I really liked Skadden as a place to start your career. So it was a great introduction.
Yeah, no, and you were doing fine there. You're doing great. You stayed a couple years longer than I did.
Is that right? I left in 97. When did you leave?
I left in 95, yeah. So
really?
You were still there for a little while, and I'm sure moving up the chain and impressing everybody. No logical path to the next thing you did was politics. You gave not necessarily running for office a try, but you jumped onto a little-known presidential campaign for Bill Clinton, right?
Yeah, in 96. And so one of the things that brought me to D.C., like the two things. One is I love D.C. It reminded me of North Carolina, which is where I'm from, but I didn't really want to be in North Carolina. I felt like everybody from college was going to be there, so I wanted to try something different. And I had done an internship in D.C. in college and just liked the area. It reminded me of North Carolina. I thought the people were really nice. I like the fact that it's just a lot of different types of people here in DC, and it was relatively close to North Carolina. And so that's why I settled here. But one of the other draws was just an interest in politics at the time. I say at the time because after working on the campaign, I didn't love it as much as I thought I should, or thought that other people that were really, dedicated to politics, that I didn't like it as much as they did. And so I worked on Clinton Gore for about 3-4 months, took a leave of absence from Skadden to do that. And it was a great experience. Again, like I learned a lot, loved it for the temporary assignment that it was, and then decided I didn't want to do that long term.
What was it that, and I remember talking about politics, and maybe you did have some political aspirations, if I'm remembering right, back when we were baby lawyers. But what was it you thought politics would be or could be? And what was it that sort of disabused you of continued participation in that process?
I will say that I think my impression of it may be unfair because I only experienced the campaign as opposed to experiencing governing after you win the election. So, maybe I'm unfair in this, but I guess I didn't get the sense that everybody was there for the right reasons. Like I didn't feel like they were there to improve the world or change people's lives for the better. I felt it was more about winning.
Sure.
So, and again, like that could have been attributable to the fact that it was a campaign as opposed to governing, but that was just kind of the sense that I got. And I also felt like, I realized that my interest in politics wasn't so much about a dedication to really changing or fixing things or addressing things. It was more because it seemed cool, and I thought, maybe I could do it, but not because I had a burning desire. And I just feel like politicians should really care about fixing things for people and should be more concerned about that than just the process of winning. But I think like that's a longer conversation because I think the system is designed to force people to focus more on elections and campaigning than actually governing.
Well, thank goodness it's gotten better since then.
Exactly. So I think I made the right call.
Yeah, I would say, or maybe your lack of participation has caused this shit show that we find ourselves in now. If only you had stayed in, Jim.
Well, I think it's sad because I do think people that could contribute and could be great are discouraged from doing it or don't want to participate in it because of the way it's gotten at this point. So I do think that's pretty sad.
Did you like politics before going in?
I did.
Like going from M&A to going to politics is not knowing too much about the law since I'm not a lawyer, but I'm guessing that's a huge change of pace. And so how did they say yes, or did they just need any legs and like, hey, you're smart, you do M&A, you must be intelligent, come join us and we can use you later? Or did they say we need you here?
No, I expressed an interest. There was a partner at the firm who had been, I'm trying to remember what she did, but she had been, very high up in government. And so I did a lot of work with her. And then, when the election was coming up, I mentioned to her that I would love to work in the campaign and kind of see what it was like behind the scenes. And so she was able to help me do that.
Yeah, Skadden was that type of firm and probably is even more so now. You're still in DC, but obviously in a sort of a different capacity for sure. But there were people all over politics at the firm on at the time, both sides of the political aisle, and mooting people for debates. And obviously we had a lot of people that had been, in not necessarily elected positions, but a lot of appointed positions. The head of the IRS was there when we were there, and the head of a bunch of other agencies. So yeah, if you wanted to get involved, all you had to do was raise your hand. And obviously someone like Jim, who was qualified, went right to the front of the line. Yeah. You had another brush with politics because you had a little-known law professor named Barack Obama, who I presume had an influence on you as well.
He did. So I went to University of Chicago for law school, and I was there at a great time. Obviously, so Elena Kagan was there. First of all, I didn't have her as a professor, but she was there and very active. And it's a very small school, so there are only like 200 people in a law school class. So you would see her and interact with her even if I didn't have classes with her.
Went on to be a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, exactly. So I used to play back then. I used to play a lot of pickup basketball. So
did Elena play? I didn't realize she played. Oh
yeah, absolutely. Even at Skadden, like we'd have a Saturday pickup game that we would play when I was.
No,
there.
I thought you were suggesting Justice Kagan played, but
no, she did not. She did not. But Barack Obama did. So he was always there. He was a very good player. At least to me he was, and he was there all the time. So I got to know him, just from playing pickup. But then I actually took a seminar from him my third year of law school, and there were only 8 of us in the class. And so you got to really know him on a very personal level. So it was great exposure, great experience. Like everybody asked me what he was like. And I said, like, he was then the way he appears on TV when you see him now, just always very calm and collected, extremely smart. When he came to Chicago, his reputation obviously preceded him. So he had been president of the Harvard Law Review and just everybody knew who he was. And so was very excited to get to know him, but, just a phenomenally impressive person.
Did you ever think about jumping back into politics when he won or when he was running?
I didn't.
Burn that bad.
Yeah,
you were burned.
I'd had my fill, and I was on to other stuff. So no.
That's good though. I mean, that's a really good lesson that, I mean, I wouldn't say you gave it a try, but you had a thought about a passion, and
Right.
then you gave it enough of a try, as we call it now, fail fast. You didn't fail, but you realized that wasn't what you want to
Right.
do. And so many
Yeah.
people do, who knows what went into your decision to want to get into politics. Could have been dreams that other people put in your head or what you thought politics should be. And a lot of people pursue careers based on
Right.
some of those other factors. You did not do that. You found your own path.
Yeah. I just felt like, I wasn't properly motivated for what I thought you should care about or have getting into politics. I'm like, I don't want to say that I don't care about the issues or care about people, but I don't know. I just didn't really I didn't feel like I had a burning passion to do that. And I just think that, people that are called on to pursue that career ought to really have that.
Yeah. Any parallels you see between, I mean, obviously, negotiations, particularly in the world you run in entertainment and sports, and frankly, recruiting, and there's a lot of diplomacy. There's a lot of, communication. Any parallels and any differences that you see?
Other than, I think both are dirty businesses. Those are the primary parallel that I see.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but lest people not understand who you are, what I admire about the way you've built your practice is you really tried to do it a different way. I'm sure you know how to sharpen your elbows when you need to and
Right.
compete, but you've never, I mean, I don't see you on the same stages with the 2 or 3 or 10 other people that tend to like to self-promote.
Right.
Nobody's that doesn't need to know you is going to recognize you. The lawyering skills at the highest level that you bring to the practice is of being a sports agent is really, I don't want to say unprecedented because I don't know everyone out there, but that's not the norm. What you do
Right.
is something different, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the way I was first introduced to being an agent is that there was a partner at Williams and Connolly who wanted somebody with a corporate background, about 4 years experience, who had not previously been an agent, to train in the ways that he was doing things. And so that was appealing to me, number one. Number two is the clients that he had signed at that point. He had Grant Hill and was just about to sign Tim Duncan. And so I respected that. And then finally, I just respected the law firm, Williams and Connolly, where he was practicing. And, he was doing it the right way. And so, doing it as an attorney, being mindful of things like conflicts of interest, charging in a different way that was to the benefit of the clients. And then, finally, and most importantly, doing it ethically. And so that's what I've based my career on. I've been doing it, being an agent for the past 25 years. And candidly, it can be frustrating because it is a very dirty industry and a very dirty business. And you'll see, most agent decisions are made by clients, not on the merits, but on, some illegal activity, illegal payment, whether it's to a player, a family member, a parent, an AAU coach. And so, we've never competed that way. We never will compete that way. And so, so it can be frustrating in that regard, knowing that people are making decisions like that. But I think we end up with the right clients for us and, who choose on those principles.
Yeah.
What do you think's the biggest change in sports and what you look for in athletes or what you protect in athletes from when you started 20 years ago to now? Or has it changed?
Yeah, I think there's not been a change in terms of what we're looking for. Yeah. I was fortunate to start my career working with Grant Hill, and you'll never find a better person who comes from a better family. He's just like the gold standard. And so, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great guys, but that's really what we're looking for. And it doesn't have to be like a Boy Scout that never makes a mistake. What you're looking for is good people that you want to work with. And I think one of the reasons that I like doing this as compared to the corporate transactional practice I started in is I like the idea of helping individuals and families that are navigating this process and need somebody to kind of steer them through it and maximize the opportunity for them. And so I find that tremendously gratifying. I think, as I said, I've been doing it 25 years now. Another piece that I now find equally gratifying is trying to help educate and mentor the young agents that work with me. And so, teaching them how to go about doing this job, introducing them to the right people, kind of helping them navigate their careers as well. I just get a lot of satisfaction from that.
Yeah, to twist that though, like what's changed in the industry? So like 20 years ago, there was kind of video games, kind of whatever else. But now you've got name, image, and likeness where I can just replicate you, or I've got NFTs that I can put your face or posterize it. Do you navigate that? Do you teach your kids?
So the answer is yes, we have to navigate all that. I mean, I think the biggest change really is social media and the impact that social media can have, where the athlete can speak directly to the fan. Great in many respects, can be very dangerous in others. So it's something that you have to help them understand the dangers of it and try to hopefully avoid some of those things. Like NIL, I think is no different. I mean, it's the same. It's marketing the athlete. It just seems to be earlier now with the introduction of the ability to do it in high school and college, but it's the same principles and the same things that we as agents do. And NFTs, I mean, there's always going to be something new. I kind of feel like that one is already almost gone, to be honest with you.
I hope so.
But yeah, there's always something that you have to kind of be, responsive to and on top of.
Yeah, that's got to be right. And in terms of your newer agents and the folks that are lucky enough to work with you that you mentor, where do they come from? Where do you find to be a fruitful place to find the next Jim Danner?
Yeah, so we'll hire, and then we also merged with a Spanish agency about 3 years ago, and so I was able to work with more agents as a result of that merger. So it just really depends. Like we'll hire when a need arises, and then otherwise, the ones that we're working with now came from that merger.
How do you? I mean, again, the culture you came from was small. It was you and someone else, and then I think you had several people at some point. Probably grew to a sizable group within Williams and Connolly, but still relatively boutique, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Now that it's bigger, what are you able to do to maintain that sort of culture and ethics that you've come to be so known for?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big challenge. Like I think hiring the right people, first of all, is the most important thing. People that work hard, are dedicated, are smart, they're ethical, and just people that you want to be around. Like, when I was at Williams and Connolly, there was the LA test, which is, would you want to be on a flight for 5 hours traveling from DC to LA with that person? So, that's a big piece of it. And I think culturally, you have to just you've got to be mindful of it. Like you've got to prioritize it. You've got to always be thinking about how you can make sure that the culture is something that is appealing to people. Like, that you don't want people to want to leave. And so, it's something that we just prioritize all the time. We decided to go remote as a result of COVID. And so I think it's even harder with that. So you've got to, again, prioritize and just try to think of ways to stay connected and stay close to each other.
Yeah, that's got to be hard. And I know when I visited your office, when I was up there, it was a fun place. You guys had, I don't know, beanbag chairs and futons and video games. And right. I assume that was as much for the people that worked there as for your clients when they came through.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
Yeah, mainly for the clients at that point. But again, there's probably more travel, more in-person meetings as a result. But the piece that's harder is just the collaboration and just being together and just being able to yell down the hallway or just walk into somebody's office. So again, you've just got to be more deliberate with it.
Mm-hmm. Are all your athletes mainly basketball players?
They are. We do some marketing and PR for some baseball players, but as agents and full service agents, it's all basketball.
And women's basketball too. I mean, you were sort of you got involved in that as early as anybody, and obviously had some great successes there. Is that something you guys still spend a fair amount of energy with?
We don't. So we, I guess Tamika Catchings was our last client to retire. And so we have not continued the women's practice. I mean, it was great at the time, when I first started in 97, really the first client I ever worked with was Nikki McRae, who was, who had been the MVP of the ABL, which was the other competing league with the WNBA, and they both started at the same time. And then so she had a 1-year contract, had been MVP of the ABL, so then was going to go to the WNBA with a tremendous amount of leverage. So that was really the first client that I ever worked with, and still worked with her until, unfortunately, she just passed away about a month ago. And so worked with her, as she was a head coach in college, and so did those deals for her as well. So
that's neat. So you really stay with people even when it's not your core, even, frankly, when it's probably not, your highest and best use, but you stay with the family when you're with the family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want it to be a long-term relationship. So, hopefully they have very long playing careers, but then go on to other things, whether it's, corporate things or front office or coaching, whatever it may be. So we hope to have that relationship after they're done playing.
Out of all your clients in all your years, what's 1 or 2 moments where you were just starstruck? And I know but when you're in a situation, like, as you said, you're hanging, Grant Hill, so I'm sure you've been with him, but maybe at one moment he took you back court or something, and you're just in a room full of mega stars, and you just look around and go, wow, I'm in this, I'm in this room. It may not be a particular person, but I'm in this moment in this room.
Yeah. I don't tend to get too starstruck, to be honest with you. I mean, I can think of a couple of situations. One was when I was first starting in the industry, and just meeting the clients, for the first time, obviously was kind of cool. I remember meeting Dr. J, and I thought that was cool because I had always, liked and idolized him when I was younger. There was once where, at All-Star, it used to be much more of a party at All-Star, or maybe I've just kind of aged out of it and I don't pay attention anymore. But Michael Jordan would always have like the best party of the All-Star weekend. And when All-Star was in LA, he hosted it at the Playboy Mansion, and there were all these Hollywood celebrities that were there as opposed to just the athletes. And so that was kind of cool, and something that wasn't common. And I guess the last one I'll say is, and this is not, it may not excite anybody else, but we were doing a deal for Ray Allen with the Seattle Supersonics, and we had been in Seattle trying to negotiate the deal, and we were coming back to DC, and Howard Schultz was then the owner of the Sonics, and just said, just fly back with me. And so that was, I want to say, I don't know if it was my first time on a private jet, but it was one of the first times, and his jet was ridiculous. And so that was just kind of a cool experience for me, because I was relatively young at that point. So it was just kind of a cool star experience.
That is pretty cool. I want to go back to the Playboy Mansion, though. So,
Yeah.
So you're young, married at that point. What do you do, Allison? I've got to go to this business meeting. How does that? How are you able to sell that?
I was married, so but she, she's always been very supportive, and knows I was there for clients, and
right.
I was working.
Understood. No, and I'm sure that's true knowing you, but that's got to be one of your best sales pitches ever.
Yeah, definitely. it was very cool. It's just like everywhere you turn, there was a celebrity and a star.
That's pretty cool. I haven't had that experience, but when I have encountered the celebrity types, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, you look exactly the same. And then other times it's like, oh my gosh, usually you don't look nearly as good, but you look completely different than you were in that last movie I saw you in.
Exactly. Makeup does a lot.
Yeah, I guess maybe I should get into makeup. I don't know. You've stayed handsome all these years. What's your secret, man?
I don't know. I'm not running marathons like you, so I've got to do that in my next phase of my life.
Well, you were an athlete, though, and I bet you're still doing athletic things. Tennis was your big sport coming up. And basketball only secondarily, but at some point you hang up the racket, and you kind of think you're done with sports forever, right?
Yeah, growing up, I'm trying to think like when I started playing tennis, but I was like 8 or 10, I think, and started doing the tournaments in North Carolina, and I was good, but I got to a certain level and just peaked and just wasn't getting any better. And so, going into college, there were probably some places I could have played, but Carolina was not one of them. I think, I'd like to think I could have walked in the team, but who knows? But I'd played a lot of those guys growing up, and I knew they were all better than me. And I just kind of said, you know what, it's time to pivot to something else and spend my time there as opposed to continuing to chase tennis. And it's weird because I don't play anymore now. Like when I've tried to get out there, I think it's more frustrating for me knowing what I used to be able to do. And I haven't, put the time into kind of spending the time to kind of get back to where I was. But yeah, tennis, I mean, it was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. But at some point I just said, it's kind of time to hang it up.
No tennis clients then?
No, like I think tennis is a very, like you have to be very plugged into the tournaments and getting, so I'm sure I could do it. I just have not, I've not tried to bite that off. The only other sport I tried to dabble in was football. And I just, for whatever reason, either, the situation wasn't right, but I just didn't enjoy it. So just decided I would just focus on basketball.
Well, I mean, I assume at least part of the football basketball distinction has to be, and I guess the distinction's gotten a little less drastic, but is the money, right? I mean, there's a lot less, there's fewer, the players that are making good money in football is few and far between in a relative sense. Obviously they all make pretty good money, but given that you're making a small percentage of the money they make, somebody making $1 million or $2 or $3 million a year doesn't really generate a lot of opportunity for you. And they're wearing helmets, so it's kind of hard to go get endorsements for people wearing helmets, right?
Yeah, unless you're dealing with the skills positions, like it's much harder.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't really that so much. It was more the personalities of everybody involved. And again, maybe I didn't stick with it long enough to really get to know people. But it's just like there was an overabundance of testosterone, like even with the wives, and so I was just I'll just stick with basketball.
If you could, excluding basketball, if you could pick a sport, so not people, but sports, and say, man, it would be cool to be an agent representing X number of athletes in this sport, what sport would that be?
You're taking basketball out of the picture.
And taking basketball out of the equation.
So Tandem's going to add another aspect of their businesses. I see what you're saying.
Right. Where we're going to grow.
I mean, I guess it would be tennis, and specifically women's tennis. Like I've always really enjoyed women's tennis. Like now that Serena's done, it's like, probably not as exciting now as it will be when the next star emerges. But yeah, I've always enjoyed watching women's tennis.
And have you, I mean, I imagine your agents, especially the younger ones, are looking for ways to bring value. I mean, so is it every other day they're saying, hey, how about we go into, soccer? I mean, soccer's huge now. Are those discussions that you have, and how do you ferret them out?
Yeah, so the company that we merged with, You First, is one of the biggest soccer agencies in the world. Okay. And so, but there's not a lot of crossover, like where people are going from sport to sport or representing multiple sports. I mean, there've been a couple of agents that have successfully done 2 sports. I've never heard of anyone doing 3 sports. And again, like I'm not really into baseball, which is where, why I never really pursued that as an agent. And then with football, like I said, for whatever reason, like we had 3 clients and I just didn't really enjoy the experience as much as basketball. So I've just tended to focus on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, the marketing doesn't distinguish itself, right? I mean, the contract negotiating, for sure, those are very different pieces. But a Pepsi endorsement is a Pepsi endorsement, or am I looking at it too simplistically?
No, you're right. And we've done marketing. Like I said, we do it for baseball. We've done it in golf. We've done some in tennis. We've done some in gymnastics. And so, it's, those skills translate.
Somewhat on a tangent, what do you think of esports? You think that's going to grow? You think it's kind of just a niche thing that'll never go anywhere? Or do you think at one point in whatever distant future, there'll be agents all the way around for like every esport athlete type thing?
Yeah. I mean, if you'd asked me that, years ago, I probably would have said, no, I don't see it lasting or growing. I actually do think that it's got legs. And I think it's gotten to a point now where it's popular, but there's still tremendous room for growth. I don't know what's going to push it to that next level, but I do think it's sustainable.
For the young lawyers, pick up an esport athlete, in other words.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's pretty early in that, that the stage of that development. But I think if somebody's interested in it, knows it, I think it's certainly something they should try.
And I show my ignorance. I mean, obviously, I know there are people that get paid and lots of money and have followings to have other people watch them play games, if I've articulated that right. But
Right.
are there leagues that they are actually parts of and that they negotiate contracts with as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh
Like,
my
for
gosh.
example, in the NBA, there's an affiliated esports league. So they have, each team, I think, well, I don't know if every team does, but many teams have an esports affiliate.
Wow. Are they?
Arenas. They've got
Wow.
arenas and venues as well.
And like a couple of years ago, and I'm not sure what happened to it. And I'm hazy on this, so I know I'm on a podcast, but please check my facts on this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they were trying to start an Overwatch league where Robert Kraft and a few others bought into the league for a team and paid multi-millions of dollars to get the league going. Where that league ended up and how it ended up, couldn't quite tell you. But there's some serious dollars in there.
Wow. So we're beyond the point of our people that are in auto racing athletes. We're talking about is some guy sitting here like we're sitting here, an athlete.
I tell you, when you watch it, I tell you, funny about basketball, me and my friends were in a bar once and we were watching, like in the corner, they were showing NBA 2K Live, which is a video game, people playing it. And from a distance, it took us a couple seconds to realize, is that real or is it a video game?
Yeah.
And so eventually it's going to flip to, you can't tell from a TV, is that real? Is that not?
Well, I hope some of the people that are listening are as dumb as I am, because you guys obviously understand what you're talking about. So we're not looking at someone playing a game any longer. Now we're looking at the players play. We're looking at his clients play, but it's not controlled by their natural ability. It's by some person who's learned to play the video game really well.
Like NFL Madden, right? Or even, I'm sure some of your clients might have been on NBA 2K Draft, right? Like I can pick Grant Hill right now and go play with him.
Wow. I mean, I get that, but that other people would want to watch you. And I guess that Grant Hill or whoever it is, I mean, they're probably superhuman, right? They can't get hurt.
Yeah, but the viewership is global, right? I mean, the viewership now expands out.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Mike. Like, I don't know that they get injured in video games. That should be a wrinkle that's added to.
Right.
You can like on Madden football. I know you can set the thing where the player can get injured and be out for weeks.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
But they can also
fatigue factor. So one of the things I know in Madden that a lot of NFL players do is when the new version comes out, Madden ranks you on what your skill level is.
Yeah.
And like how fast you are and things like that.
Right.
And they take that personally.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I would.
Same with basketball.
Yeah, same with basketball. Right?
Did you ever have to file an appeal? Like, no, he has a better, whatever jump shot than you're giving him credit for?
Like, none of my clients, at least, have never complained to me about their 2K rating. I'm sure it's coming at some point, but I've never had to deal with that one.
I'm not clear on this. It might be slander. They said I was a 98 on shooting and I should be 99. It's slander.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. Well, so there's two first rodeos I want to talk about before I let you get back to earning money or seeing your family. One would be, sort of landing clients. I don't know what's the right way to say it because it makes them sound like commodities. And I know you're very relational, and probably the ones you didn't get, you understood and were very excited and rewarded in the ones you did. But talk about that process and some of your early successes.
Yeah, so like I said, I started in 97. I'm trying to think, like the first time somebody really signed with me was in 2005. And that was Marvin Williams from Carolina, and he ended up going second in the draft. So before that, it was always, I was kind of supporting the partner that brought me in and helping him. And then in 2005, I got an opportunity to meet Marvin's dad. And he and I just had a really, short but very good conversation. And I was able to get into the process of recruiting him. And it was, the other interesting thing was that he was from North Carolina, which is my alma mater. And we had typically not been able to get into North Carolina. And so prior to that, someone had arranged for me to have a lunch meeting with Dean Smith, who, was just an amazing person and just, really gracious. And, I think part of it was that we had Grant Hill, and I think at the time we had Cherokee Parks. And so his perception of us was that we were a Duke agency because of Grant.
Right.
And I had to go in and appeal to him and say, look, I'm Carolina through and through. and would love the opportunity to be able to talk to the Carolina guys as they're coming into the NBA. And so things kind of aligned. I had that lunch meeting with him in the fall of that year, and then Marvin was coming out in that spring. And so had the meeting with him, hit it off with Marvin's dad, had a meeting with Marvin and his family. They, they never gave me any feedback whatsoever. They didn't one joke. They didn't smile. They just kind of stared at me throughout the presentation. And I left thinking there's no way we're going to get him. And then he called me a couple of days later and said he was going to hire me. So Marvin is like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And so I will always have a soft spot in my heart for him in terms of getting my career started, in terms of being able to sign clients on my own.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's got to be memorable. And navigating the family dynamics must be so challenging. I mean, there's some movies that depict this to some extent, but I have a family. I've been part of a family my whole life, and you could jump into someone's family because that's kind of what you're doing, right. and you're not even in yet. You're trying to get in, and you're trying to figure out. I mean, the power dynamic, who makes decisions? Does the kid listen to the parents? Does the kid not like the parents? Are the parents split? I mean, you got to need a whole flow chart to even have a chance at that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's only a piece of it. Like, obviously, like trying to figure out the dynamics and who's going to ultimately make the decision is hard. But it's also just trying to navigate all the things like the misinformation that other agents are spreading, and the fact that they know how to appeal to these kids and get them to make decisions on things that aren't really that important in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
And so you're competing against that. And it's like, do they want to pick somebody who tells them what they want to hear, or do they want to pick somebody who tells them what they need to hear? And so again, that's recruiting to me is the most challenging part of the job. Like the representation, I wouldn't say is easy, but that's the fun piece. I think recruiting to me is just not as much fun, just because of all the other stuff that's going on and what other people are willing to do.
Mm-hmm. And that means you're just not, I mean, is it fair to say you're just not in the running for folks that are having, whatever thrown at them? You're not even going to get in the room.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to make decisions based on that, then yeah, we're not in that game.
I'm just curious, and I know you're going through this, but one question.
Sure.
What's the one thing you hear from some of these, other agents where you just shake your head and say, "Man, I can't believe you're selling that"?
Well, I wouldn't hear it.
What do you think? Right.
Yeah.
What do you think that
they just hype everything, so it's like, they'll get everybody thinking, from a marketing perspective, that they're going to get tens of millions of dollars, and, it'll be a guy at the end of the bench or a guy that's not getting drafted, or they'll hype, what they're going to be able to accomplish in their first few years in the NBA. So it's just like, they just sell kind of that sex appeal and it's unchecked. And those people where they want to hear that, they're gonna like that.
And don't they wind up? And I know you and I've talked about this before. And most of your clients, if I'm not mistaken, are clients as rookies. That you're not necessarily looking for laterals, if you will. But there has to be a whole market of people that are disappointed with their agents that would, on reflection, love to work with someone like you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think again, like a lot of our clients have come that way, where they're not satisfied with what the prior agent is doing, and they want to make a switch. And so, actually those are great clients that, somebody that's kind of been through it and is more realistic or understands how things work, and they're willing to, they want to switch. So
one famous lateral you have that didn't come through that process, but came through a period of great success, Lynn Sanity. That's one of your clients, right?
Right. Yeah.
Talk about that process. That must have been just, I can't think of the expression, but just being there at a moment that lasted for a little while. And gosh, from a marketing perspective and just a fun perspective, that must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a brief meeting with him and his mom when he was coming out of Harvard before the draft, and they didn't, I guess it wasn't the right fit at that time, and so they chose another agent who was like a solo agent, and Jeremy was probably his biggest client at the time, and so he, didn't get him initially. then Linsanity hits, and I'm like, man, I should have tried harder to get Jeremy. He turned out to be a great player. And I was sitting in my office one day, and an email popped through, and it was his mom saying, "Hey, would you still have interest in working with Jeremy?" And I'm like, I thought it was a prank, to be honest with you.
Yeah, at that time.
So
Wow.
quickly arranged the call, and they were looking for. I think what he was really looking for is like Linsanity was so big,
Yeah.
and he wanted somebody that had a little bit more, I guess, experience, but also a little bit more bandwidth in terms of handling all the marketing and PR opportunities that were coming across the transom for him. And so, it was perfect timing. It was a perfect fit. And it was a lot of fun, like a lot of trips to China, a lot of marketing and endorsement deals, like doing his free agent contract where he left New York to go to Houston. So it was a great time.
Yeah, I mean, were there, and I'm sure every player brings this, but him in particular, were some creative opportunities that you and your team were able to put together that just came your way that you're like, wow, I never even thought about marketing someone that way.
Yeah, a little bit both. Yeah, like one of the things that we put together, I thought was great, was that he wanted to launch his foundation, and so what we did is put together an initiative, and it was around All-Star in Houston as well, and we put together an initiative trying to identify under the radar charities that needed kind of not only financial support but also exposure. And, basically had a contest, involved his fans and whatnot, and picking the most worthy charities. And so he picked a winner and then two runner-ups, if I remember correctly. And it was just a great initiative and a great launch event in Houston around All-Star. So that was a lot of fun. But, candidly, a lot of the stuff with Jeremy, it was more just so many opportunities were just kind of flooding. So it was like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
And just that we were picking ones that were authentic to him, that he cared about. He has very high standards, and, Jeremy definitely knows what he wants. He's a really, really smart guy. So helping to choose out of those opportunities, and then also just negotiating great deals for him.
That's great. I mean, that's such an impact you're able to be a part of. And I know your clients, at least the ones I observe, seem to have great hearts. And you seem to be a great cheerleader as well, you and your organization, in terms of just being so happy for the things they accomplish, not just on the court, but personally. And I'm sure they appreciate your support and encouragement
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely. I mean, I think our job is to really, elevate their profiles, to make them the center point, and to shine a spotlight on them, and just, again, like, help them navigate what a tremendous opportunity that they have. And so, we want to be back there as their cheerleaders and their supporters.
Yeah, well, what an amazing career, and it's been so fun to watch it and interact with you occasionally. And I hope you have many years, or as many as you want left. Got a lot of lucky younger agents that are coming up under you, and I can't wait to see what happens in these golden or more golden years of your career.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I mean, it's been a lot of fun catching up with you and sharing some experiences.
Thanks,
Thanks
Jim.
for having me. Yeah.
You're one of the best. I'll talk to you later. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
What do you think of Jim?
I think he's really, really intelligent.
Yeah.
And led a great, interesting life.
Yeah, like you, he has a cool voice. Definitely a cool voice. But yeah, it's amazing what he's accomplished. And really, I don't know if we got into it fully, but he had no obvious path to become a sports agent and a mega sports agent. When we were just young associates at a really cool, important, well-paying law firm back in 1993. But I was working in the energy and natural resource group. He was working in the corporate group. We were working on, billion-dollar things, but they weren't, exciting like sports.
I think most people, if you take a look at where they ended up,
yeah.
If you said, could you plot a spot, plot a path to where you are?
Yeah.
No one can plot it. Very
Nowadays.
few people can plot it. There's a group of people that I know that have been in, for example, come out of law school, go to mergers, and just stay with it all the way to the top, or started an associate in a big bank and rise all the way to CEO.
Right.
But I would say most people, their life path and career path isn't the straight line.
Yeah, yours is certainly very random. I know you and I've talked, and you're like, I don't even know how I got this job, and not sure they know what I'm doing, but I know you're actually really good at what you do, and you probably have a lot more. You self-deprecate, I think, is what you do.
Appreciate that.
But that's That's a fair observation. But then I think of people like my dad, who was an aircraft mechanic, came out of the Air Force, was aircraft mechanic his whole career, made a little bit more, next year than he did last year. But, that is what, at least I'm a little older than you. That's what my parents' generation did.
Nowadays, you don't stay with companies. And if you don't stay with companies, you don't. And that's,
or companies don't stay with you.
Companies don't stay with you, right? Yeah. Before you had a pension, you stayed with the company because both intertwined. Now it's, listen, each person is their own individual person. And you move, they move. It's a combination of both.
Yeah, I think that's right. But yeah, I mean, once he got into the sports space, and we didn't talk too much about it, but he was with really one of the top law firms in the country, Williams & Connolly, which is not known for sports agency. It's known for being a really litigation juggernaut. But they had this really neat boutique within it. And he went out on his own and started Tandem Sports, which is now merged into this larger enterprise. And good for him. I have to believe that, and you touched on it, the fact that he is not starstruck, the fact that, sure, he can be at the Playboy Mansion and say, look, there's, John Travolta or whatever, but that's not what he seeks out. That's not what he values. He's probably not asking for autographs or selfies or pictures. And I imagine his clients and prospects appreciate that.
That goes to professionalism.
Yeah.
It's whenever you're in a room, you got to have some sense of self-decor. And so you're looking around and the moment might be big.
Yeah.
You kind of let the moment get you.
Yeah.
And he's very good at that. You can tell.
He's cool.
Been in that moment.
He's very unlike you and me.
He's cooler than the other side of the pillow.
Yeah, he would never say cooler than the other side of the pillow. I think that expression, if you use that expression, you're definitely not cool.
That's probably why he hung up with us.
And I use that expression. Yeah, that's true. He was just trying to leave and somehow he came back. Funny story. I didn't mention it because no sense talking about my limited foray into representing athletes when we're talking with one of the top 100 negotiators in the world. But I for a little while was licensed to represent football players because I was doing some legal work for some of them. And so a couple of them said, hey, why don't you get licensed? Because you have to get licensed to become an agent in the different leagues. So I'd take a test. And this was for the NFL. And, so a couple of my clients were in the waning years of their career, and they had some big careers and they had some big agents. I won't say the names, but names that you would know. Everybody would know if I said the names. And so at one point, one of them signed with me, which is, signing a piece of paper and telling the NFL I'm now their agent. I think they were at the end of their contract, which probably turned out to be their last, or maybe they had one more as a backup or something like that. So as soon as that happened, I started getting threatening calls from this agent telling me that I was intimidating his player, who was an offensive lineman. And for our listeners, I'm not offensive lineman size, nor am I intimidating in any way. And it just, I got cease and desist letters and all this stuff. I was like, man, this is not worth it to get 3% of some player is just about done and not going to make much money anyway. If that's how they fight over the players that are at the end of their career, I can only imagine what it'd be like to compete for one of the, 2,000 or 3,000 players that are being sought after by 10,000 agents. It's a really a strange economy that I didn't need to be part of and probably never should have been a part of.
Again, good to venture in, understand what's there, and realize this ain't my space.
I think that's right. But thank you for venturing into this podcast, by the way.
This is fun. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. All right. Well, thanks for tuning into My First Rodeo Podcast. We'll talk to you next time.